Hey everybody, happy Monday. My name is Minda Hartz and I'm your host of Secure the Seat Live. You could be anywhere on this Monday, but you're here with us. We're so excited to have you. If it's your first time joining us, welcome. You're already part of the family. If you are already part of the squad, you already know the vibes. Happy that you're here. And if you're watching this on the replay, we're happy that you made time because, again, we don't take your time lightly. I'm always excited to be here with you on Mondays. It's the one thing during the week that I really look forward to is engaging with you all. So let us know in the chat how your weekend was. I know that we have our primary audience watching on LinkedIn, but we also have our Facebook audience, Twitter, and YouTube. And we're just happy that you're here. Hopefully, I haven't missed any other place. You know what's funny? I'm actually here in Las Vegas today. My last in-person speaking engagement was in March 2020 in Las Vegas. My first in-person event in a year and a half is in Las Vegas. Is that not crazy? But I'm here. I'm excited to, get back out there. And so just happy that you're here. Before we bring Klay to the stage, I want to remind you that we are very close to the launch of my next book, Right Within. I am just so excited for you all to get your hands on this book. It's time for us to heal. Healing is not a one-time event. Healing is a lifestyle. Many of us have dealt with a lot of racial trauma. We might be dealing with it right now. And we can't leave our healing in the hands of our managers. We can't leave our healing in the hands of any unconscious bias trainings. Healing starts with us and healing is for us. So what we're going to do, if you have pre-ordered a copy of Right Within, Mike, for those who know, he's my colleague, partner in crime behind the scenes. He's going to drop a link. It's a sweepstakes. So if you've pre-ordered a copy, all you got to do is show proof of purchase, enter to win a self-care Right Within gift basket. It's awesome. Really great things inside. And then every person who enters gets a Right Within reading guide. And so special just for you. So even if you pre-ordered back in March, you still can enter this prize. And if you have not pre-ordered your book, I would ask that you do that before October 5th and go ahead and sweeten the pot and make sure that you enter into the sweepstakes. So we got that out of the way. We dropped those links in. Today, I'm excited to have Klay S. Williams. He's become a friend. I remember the first time that I saw him, I was like, who is this dapper gentleman? We were both doing some press and I've gotten to know him since. And he just has a really great perspective. And I love the way that he does business and how he shows up in this world. But Klay is a multimedia host, an entrepreneur, a podcaster, a speaker, so many things. But I'm excited for us to have a conversation about creating work-life balance. I know you hear that word pairing so often, and maybe some of us don't know how to do it now that we've been working from home, how to have those difficult conversations. If you are feeling burned out, I know I felt burned out over the last year and a half, and there has to create some balance. So without further ado, I'm going to invite my friend Klay S. Williams to the stage. Hey, Klay.
Hey, Minda, how are you?
Good to see you. How are you
You
today?
too. I am great. I am great. I'm blessed, and I'm so glad to be with you today.
Likewise, for our audience who may not be familiar with your work, please share a little bit more about the work you do and yourself.
Sure. So I teach people how to discover their purpose and calling in life. And so I work backwards. We never start with who do you want to be? Why do you feel called to be that? We work through the pathologies of why do you not feel fulfilled in your work? What are those some things that you need to unlearn so that we can get to what you want to do in life? And so I support people fundamentally in closing the gap between their past and their present so that the dream of the future, the purpose that they want for themselves that I call plan A, can be realized. Why would you need a plan B, C, or D when you've been called to do something only you can do? And so it's my philosophy that there is only plan A for your life.
Hey, I didn't travel with a tambourine today, but that's a tambourine moment. But we're going to drop Klay's information so that you can connect with him and hire him and work with him. Because listen, plan A is where you're headed if you want to be intentional about that. But let's talk about creating that work-life balance. First off, Klay, what is work-life balance and in your opinion, and why is it important for us to even have it?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked that because I look at work-life balance a lot different than different professionals in the wellness space. So it's being in alignment with yourself and your needs so that you can control the conditions rather than allowing the conditions of your personal and professional life to control you. And so what do I mean by that? At the core center of all work life imbalances is a communication breakdown. And usually that communication breakdown is happening with yourself firstly. You're not identifying or asking yourself, what is it that I need? What is it that I need support with? And how can I step up my game by doing things that I have not done to support myself? And then allowing that understanding to be sort of channeled in your personal and your professional life. What I mean by that is another example. For example, one of my growth edges is having deep compassion for myself, right? And so as a coach, I have to have deep compassion for other people. I have to put myself in their shoes, remove my judgment, and be able to see life as they see it. But if that's a growth edge for me, I have to ask myself, okay, how can I put myself in my own shoes and ask myself, what is it that you need in order to be able to thrive? And so when you are in alignment with asking yourself the things that you need for support, you get your time back, not only in life, but also your time back for the things that you really want to do. You have more vitality, you're healthier, you're so much more productive. And when you're more productive, that means there's a financial return that can be met on the opposite side of that, right? And another thing is that you have very clear boundaries about what it is that you will say yes to, what it is that you won't say no to, and the importance of knowing the difference between the two.
Listen, you're already coming in hot today, Clay. But you said growth edges. Tell people just a little bit about what you mean by that, because I love
Right.
that terminology.
Yeah, so many people have a difficulty with hearing the word, this is my weakness. And these are things that you are working to learn, things you are working to unlearn, things that you know that you may struggle with a bit that you're trying to grow into. And so recognizing some of those limitations that you're working to perfect, working to have harmony in with yourself is the consideration.
I love that so much. Listen, if you have questions, we'll have some time today to take some. So make sure you get them in the chat. Whatever platform you're on, we'll gather those. So make sure that you ask Clay those questions. I love how you frame that, being compassionate to ourselves. That's something that, I work with a therapist, and my therapist is always like, you have so much more compassion for others than you do
Yeah.
yourself, and it starts within, right?
Yeah, and it's a lifelong work. The conversation that we're having, I really want people to understand, it's not something you may get just today and only today. It's literally being able to ask yourself some of those difficult questions of how is it that I'm not showing up in full support for myself, and how is it that I'm not asking for the support that I need in my personal and my professional life, and then making sure you have a plan that is going to be happening and nurturing and growing every day. It's not just stopping today because we're having a conversation.
Absolutely. It's a lifestyle. That
Yes.
intention. I love that so much. So you mentioned something earlier in your comments that, kind of this buzzword of work-life balance. Some people believe in it, some people don't. What are some misconceptions that you find that people have around this quote unquote work-life balance phenomenon?
Yeah, really great question. So, one realization a lot of people have is if I have this thing called work life balance, I can't financially thrive. And then also, if where I am operating in one area of my life does not affect the whole. Like, what if I am showing up in my professional life with balance and I don't have it in my personal life? It doesn't matter. This is a holistic understanding because whether it's consciously or unconscious, how you are showing up and not asking for what you need in your personal life, it has ramifications for how you show up in your professional life and vice versa.
I love that so much. We have a question that came in here that I think works in with some of the answer that you just gave, but from Michelle, how do you view the difference between work life balance and work life integration? Great question.
Yeah, really great question. So, work life integration is a system that you are setting to place your needs and the needs of a company or a person in place to be able to support those things from a checklist standpoint, right? These are the things that I need to integrate into my life. These are things that I need to integrate in my professional and my personal understanding. Work life balance is really asking yourself more so of those emotional, mental, and for some folks, spiritual conversations of what is it that I am not getting? What is it that my spirit needs in order to thrive and survive and to be happy in the work that I'm doing?
Yes, because like that's the piece of the puzzle. I think so many of us have just been working, 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 and we don't necessarily have the happiness integrated into that. And also, we're not asking ourselves those key questions. I see another question in the chat that says, how do you know what to ask yourself to create that
Ah,
balance?"
really great question. Whenever I am in a space and I don't have balance in my life and I'm feeling it start to itch up, I literally stand in the mirror or I get a sheet of paper and just say to myself, Clay, what is it that you need for yourself and how can you support yourself? Case in the point of, Clay, this is what I need. Is that something that you can support for yourself? And so by asking yourself, where are some shortcomings that I'm not experiencing fulfillment in? Where do those areas lie? And then what are supportive tools that I can give for myself and to myself in order to jumpstart that actual plan and make it something that's tangible in life?
Whew, that it sounds like that plan A, huh?
Yeah, because so many times we don't stop to ask ourselves, what is it that I need for myself to help me? We wait and we think that work life balance is something that an employer is going to give to us, or a friend or a family member is going to give to us. It's our responsibility, and we are in control of that.
We absolutely are. I'm seeing the chat going live. People said, "Yeah, Stephen, my other brother from another mother says tambourine is jiggling." Yes, we got a lot of, of that. Um, another question I wanted to take here is, what would be an example of supportive tools? Thank you for that
Really,
question too.
yeah, really great question. There's a worksheet that I did, and I unveiled this last week at Google, and it literally, and I'm going to have it in my on my LinkedIn and also on my website for anybody who wants to subscribe and receive that. And there's four areas that I've created, and this diagram called the four quadrants of support: your personal life, your professional life, and your relationship to yourself. And a fourth area of importance that only you know, would be very presumptuous of me to tell you what the fourth area of support that you may need in your life is. And it's writing down the questions that you may be afraid to ask support from in your personal relationships. It's writing down questions you may be afraid to ask for in your professional relationships, questions you may be afraid to ask yourself that you know the truth about, ways you have not shown up and asked for that support. And then that fourth spot, whatever that is for you, some people it may be in their fitness life, some people it may be in a specific relationship, right? And so you're writing down all of these things and seeing where you're not asking for support, and then what are the threads that you can weave through that are there, because they're there in your personal, professional, and all those different quadrants. And once you have identified those threads, what's an action plan that you're going to do to just take one step in each of those four quadrants to support yourself?
Ooh, I love that so much. People are loving the supporting yourself first and asking yourself those questions because, we'll be quick to ask somebody else what they need, but we often don't ask ourselves, what is it that we need, right? And I think that's so,
Yeah.
so important. Such a rich content. And listen, we'll drop Clay's information in the chat right now so you can go to his website, subscribe, all the things so you can get that toolkit of things to help you ask the right questions. The other question that I had for you, Clay, is, you touched upon it a little bit, but I know there's some of our listeners and viewers that will watch this and say, my manager, I really need to have a
Mm.
hard conversation with my manager because I'm feeling burned out, I'm feeling overwhelmed. What advice would you give people on how to have that conversation to where they're not saying, well, it's not that I can't do the work, right? Or I don't want to do this, but we need to talk about some boundaries. We need to set put ourselves first, right? And ask for what we need. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's a really great question. One thing I always do and advise my clients is when you're going in to have a conversation with someone that's deemed as difficult, let's take the qualifier of difficult away from the conversation. Let's take that because you're coming in and assuming this is going to be a hard, difficult conversation to have, rather than understanding that a conversation is just exchanging thoughts, ideas, suggestions, and a request. The problem with these kind of conversations is people come in and they'll say, well, I was thinking that I could, what are your thoughts? I was having feelings about, what are your feelings? There's no request that's made at all. And so when you're having a conversation with someone who may be a manager or someone that is an authority figure in your org, you want to be able to go back to that language that I said before, and my advisor and mentor, Bethany, gave this to me years ago. You want to have a very clear statement and be able to say, this is what I need. Is that something that you can support? Do you hear how that hits different than you asking them their thought, their feeling? And what it does is say also, and unconsciously, you have just created a boundary by placing yourself in the authority seat, by clearly identifying what it is that you want. And there's a request that's added to that. And the good thing about this is there's no gray area. The answer is yes or no. Is that something that you can support? This is the need.
Whew, whew. Listen, if I was on, like, how Andy both has his show, he said, play back the tape, when he's talking to the housewives. I wish I could run that back so people can hear that. Make sure that you use that language because, like Klay said, it hits different, right? When you come in with a different posture. So make sure that when the replay hits on YouTube, make sure you absorb this and share it with other folks because this is so important because you can't get what you need if you don't let people know what good looks like to you.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Any other thoughts on that, Klay, that you wanted to add?
No, I just think, again, having that very clear ask and making a request at the end of every conversation is going to be your secret sauce to getting what you need.
Oh, I love that so much. I have a question here by Stephen. It says, I'm beginning to feel okay with work-life imbalance, knowing certain seasons will require me to focus more on my personal life and others on my professional life and relationships. So it's not always a 50-50 at any point in time. Your thoughts on that?
I think that's absolutely spot on, Stephen. It's an ebb and flow. It's a give and take. And what it is, you want to feel that you're in flow with both what's happening in your personal life and your professional life. You're not looking at it as, I got to have 10 out of 10. Oh, I'm at 9 out of 10. No, where are you and what do you feel emotionally connected to yourself? Firstly, do you feel spiritually connected to yourself, mentally connected to yourself? And then also, where's that in your professional life? Where's that in your personal life? And again, every breakdown for any work-life imbalance means that you're not asking for what it is that you want and the support that you need in one area of your life. So check and see where that is, and you'll be able to flow a little bit more freely and not think of it as a tit for tat, black or white in that instance.
Yeah, I think that's a good point because I think I've misconstrued what work-life balance, like, oh, I work from 9 to 5, then I can go work out from 5 to 6. And,
Right.
I'm putting myself in all these little boxes, right? And that actually creates more anxiety for me.
Yeah. That part's not black and white. You want to flow. You really want to feel like, okay, I'm in flow with myself and I'm in harmony in these areas in my life, not perfection.
Yes, I love that. I know Annette, she put back in the chat, this is what I need. Is that something that you think you can support? I is something you can support. I just love that language. It hits so different when you're in a certain posture. And I'm just glad you gave us those tools to go into the week with. I could have this conversation with you all day, Klay, but I know you got other things to do. So we're going to jump into our bonus round. For those who have never watched the show or know anything about me, I am a lover of grits and rap lyrics. Not to be confused, there's only one way, in my opinion, to eat grits, which is with salt and butter. Klay, are you a grits guy?
I am. I need salt and butter. Don't put no sugar in my grits. Please don't.
Okay, please. we implore you, we beseech you, don't put
Don't do it.
don't do it. But good grits and a good rap lyric is always a vibe for me. What is one of your favorite rap lyrics and why?
Listen, this is not even a rap lyric, it's a whole song. Nas, One Mic. One Mic. I'm telling you, that to me is a manifesto for the community, is a purpose statement. And whenever I am feeling like a little like exhausted or a little edge, I need a little momentum, I put that on and it just literally gives me the understanding that, all these other external things, the money, the riches, and fame, and all those things, as he puts it, is not important. The mic, which is our purpose, no matter where we are, it's our responsibility to telegraph that as loud as we possibly can and to show up in all aspects of our lives as bold, as brilliant, and as incredibly bodacious as we can. And so One Mic does that for me. Anything Nas does definitely is my my avatar, my spirit animal.
Okay, Queens in the house. And One Mic, you're right. The lyrics are just um top tier, but then also that beat just hits right with it too.
Yep.
So it gives you everything you need in that. So make sure you definitely check that out. I love that. The other question that I have for you, I know that everybody watching is a leader. We all have the ability to
Mm,
be a leader. We don't have to wait for our manager to call us one or give us a
mm.
promotion. We can all do that starting right now. What is one piece of advice you would give all of our leaders watching on how to make the workplace better than they found it?
Good question. I would say invest in your people and invest in your staff personal and professional well-being. Minda, last week, as I just brought up, I was at Google, and the head of industry, Andrea Brown, brought me in to talk about burnout, work-life balance, and self-care. And we were at the end of the conversation, and it actually makes me a little bit emotional just thinking about it. And there was a career young lady who had, I mean, robust careers and just very incredible work assignments. She said it was the first time in her life that a manager brought someone in to ask her how she was doing. She never even had that ever before. And so usually when I'm going into these kind of conversations, I always lead with a story of, to set up the vulnerability conversation to make sure it's a psychological safe place. I didn't have to do that. Everybody just poured out and just shared what was happening, and they were so incredibly grateful that their manager brought somebody in, because for majority of them it had never dawned on them that someone cared to ask them how were they doing.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Clay, because that simple yet impactful phrase goes a long way. I know a lot of people say, oh, you might text someone or call someone, how are you doing? And you don't feel like they're really asking, but to get it at work, especially during a time that we're living in right now, I mean, just to know that they're being thoughtful in those ways, it goes a long way. And I'm just glad that you shared that, because we can ask people how they're doing, right? Even when we get onto our virtual meetings, we don't have to just jump right into the agenda. There's
Right.
things that we can also create some camaraderie, and just we're all human, right?
Yes. Yeah, and there's proven stats that when companies invest in people first and have that attitude and that mentality and purpose statement, those companies always do better.
Yes. Listen, if your company needs, well, in my opinion, your company does need Clay to come in and talk about that. So we're going to drop drop his information in the chat so that you can follow up, because sometimes our managers don't have the tools to provide us, and we got to help them with the tools. So bring the tools to them if you need to.
That's
Clay,
right.
this has been such a great conversation. We have time for one last question, and I see it on various platforms asked in different ways. So I'm just going to straight up ask, why do you think some people are afraid to ask for what they really want and need?
Great question. In my experience as a coach, it's a worth issue. I think people are, as they're going through life, we don't ever stop to ask ourselves, what is that familial pathology or programming that we have had from our family? Because we don't want to blame people, and it's not blaming people. We don't want to say, "Is this your fault?" And it's not saying anything is anyone's fault. It's recognizing and asking yourself, where was this behavior modeled for me? Where did I learn this? And now, what are healing modalities and spaces that I can go to heal myself so that I can be a little bit more assertive in understanding where that lack comes from. Because what we've been doing in a lot of our lives is treating the symptom and not the core issue. It's the core issue as to why we don't ask for what we want and what we need. And when we figure that thing out, we're able to be healed from that.
Oof, a word on a Monday. I have to say this. When I was in my former life working in various offices and a lot of toxicity, I used to say, to myself, well, I can't believe they're not doing anything. I can't believe they're not treating me better. Yes, this is a humanity issue, but once I started to realize that I also had a role to play to let people know what good looked like to me, right? It's scary to put it out there. It's scary to let people know, no, it's not okay to talk to me in this way. You know what I mean? It's like you said, it doesn't have to be a difficult conversation. It has to, but we have to get to a point where we give ourselves permission to let people know, right? And then if they don't
Yeah.
do right after that, that's a different conversation, but at least let people know, let's level set, right?
Yeah, and in that level setting, I don't care who you are across the board. There is a respect difference that happens when you have a honest, courageous conversation with somebody and you're direct and you're saying, this is what I'm not going to be able to tolerate and this is what I need from you. Is that something you can support? And if you when you have an answer, you know if this is a ship that you want to stay on or if it's time to move on.
Absolutely. I say that we have to have those conversations because we need to know what our next step should be, right? And when you have that information, I consider it like we're Inspector Gadgets, right? You're asking that question because you need that information so that is okay, do I need to stick around a little bit longer or do I need to start strategizing an exit plan? And we can do that. Klay, we've dropped your information in the chat, but where's the best place for people to connect with you, follow you, all the good stuff?
Yeah, so across all your favorite social media, I'm at Plan A with Klay, and Klay is with a K, clearly. And my website, clayswilliams.com, is where you can get my podcast, my books, my meditation that I just launched is for 365 guided meditation on YouTube. And so all that information is there.
Oof, definitely you want to get the books, you want to get on that meditation. It's a great way to start your week. We have all the links that we dropped in the chat. Klay, any final thoughts for our audience as they're going into the rest of the week?
Yeah, I would just simply say what we've been sort of talking about in a larger fashion is that this is your responsibility. You are responsible for work-life balance for yourself. And when you have balance for yourself, everyone around you has balance because you're now teaching people and and reprogramming them on how you want to be treated. And I think that's the most important thing.
That part, did you all hear that? Sometimes you got to let people know how to treat you, right? The workplace is just like any other relationship. If you're in a romantic relationship and someone isn't treating you well, I hope that you would have that same conversation with them, right? So do that with your manager. Let them know what your work love language is and isn't. Okay.
Yeah. And if you ever, just a tip, if you're ever wondering how you can have that conversation, if you show up really well in your personal life and you're able to ask directly for what it is that you want, see how is it that you do really well in that arena? Because usually that same mechanism in being able to be clear and ask and have that clarity is something you can go ahead and use in the professional, maybe different tone, of course, but the strength is the same and the tool can be the same.
Absolutely. Listen, we're dropping Klay's information in the chat another time, so you can go ahead and get all the goods that that he's already dropped for us. And I'm glad that you have this information going into your week. Maybe you're sitting and thinking, you know what, I need to have this conversation with somebody in my life, work, personal. I need to ask myself the right questions on what support looks like. But if nothing else, Klay and I hope you will ask yourself that question. Ask those questions of yourself. Listen, connect with us, watch this again. I guarantee you watch this again, it's going to hit even more. You'll find the more tambourine moments that Klay dropped. Make sure that you go ahead and cop Right Within. Get your pre-order. Comes out October 5th. And again, Klay, I just appreciate you so much. Thank you for the work that you're doing. Let's all get to our plan A's, okay? And let people know what good looks like. Thank you, Klay, for being
Yeah,
with us. And
thank
thank you
you.
to all of you for joining us. And make sure that you give Klay some love, find him online, and we'll see you next Monday at noon. Have a great rest of your week.